Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to the discussion with the Oregon Voters Digest today. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host, and we've got quite a show here today. And in all due respect, is that just recently we just heard about the fact that the death of a real neat lady, tough lady. I'm talking about as far as Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, she was an awesome woman, a little short lady, but boy, I tell you, she was tough. She was really tough, and she really spending the time on women's rights and civil rights and things of that nature. And then all of a sudden, I got reminded of that because I was really getting ready to get into the show, and just so happened that we have someone who's basically taking the time out from knocking on doors at the end of the campaign to call me up and say, Bruce, I want to chat a little bit about the justice, and then and who she was and how great she was and the effort she made for women and civil rights. And I'm talking about our own candidate for that matter, and I'm talking about Sarah. And she's with us, and I want to thank you, Sarah, for stopping by and spending some time with us and acknowledging that. We're going to give you a few minutes, if you don't mind. I know you're out there knocking on those doors. All right, and then give us an update, if you will, on the campaign, and we'll let you go, and we'll let you go back to the campaign.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Bruce. And it is important for women in politics to look that we stand on the shoulders of giants. And boy, there wasn't a greater tiny little giant than Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was such an inspiration to women of my generation, previous generation, and also my daughter's generation. I remember going and seeing the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary with my daughter as a special moment to look at how when we engage in issues that matter to us, I know for that, for RBG, as she was affectionately known, women's rights were so important. But more important than any issue that you choose is the methodical, the consistent, the unwavering, taking everything in your power to that fight. She worked so hard from the beginning of her career with tenacity, with focus to carve out equal rights for women. And she did it in ways that sometimes were quieter. And she did it against obstacles. We learned all of the challenges that she faced in her family, what it meant to be a mother and a wife while she was doing that work, and also what it meant to succeed in a world that wasn't necessarily built for her to succeed in. She taught us a lot of things. And even on a personal level, running for office can get very tiring. And I remember watching that documentary and learning that she used to get up at 6 a.m. And work almost till midnight every night as a Supreme Court justice. But then the insider intel was that she slept all day, Saturday and Sunday, eating and sleeping and eating and sleeping. And so remembering that we put in a hard week's work, but that at the end of the week, you take care of yourself, you take care of your family, and that's how you keep on keeping on for the next week. So she was always an inspiration for me and my family. And I know that for people on the left side of the spectrum in American politics, that her loss on the Supreme Court is devastating at a time when we're fighting for human rights and justice in our nation.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much for those comments. I'm sure you'll have more to say later on and whatever. And again, thanks very much for stopping by and giving us this time, because I know your time is precious, but she was such a woman. She was, a beautiful lady aspect of it. Someone that will continue to be recognized. The whole efforts of women and civil rights in our country. Okay? Yeah. Well, with that, since we have you here, is it possible you might be able to share with us about the campaign update, and where's the campaign and how do you feel about it? The people that you're meeting and knocking on the doors with, whatever.
Yeah, this is where it's so impressive, and thanks for all your support. It has been every single week. We only have a few more weeks until the ballots are mailed here in Oregon. As you know, we vote by mail. It's so critical, and that we do that well, and other states around the country are looking to us as they're having to vote from home due to COVID. But we know that ballots are being mailed in less than a month from now. October 13th and 14th, they'll be coming out. And so what that means is that we just have a few weeks to get our message out there. And we're doing very well in the polls, neck and neck with the incumbent. He lost, the news announced that he lost his campaign director last week, the third one in 9 months, with just a little bit of time left to go. He keeps racking up campaign finance violation fines, so that's not great. You know, one thing that people may not be knowing is that there's a lot of outside interest in our race right now, because we elected a progressive DA, Mike Schmidt, and he's trying to put through some reforms there, and it's a little bit challenging for him. So what does it mean for Portland to have a mayor who's also progressive and working with him so we can craft new policy that's stable and that can help keep Portlanders safe? So there are folks looking at us on that front. We're going to release on Monday a list of endorsers. It's very long. People that were very excited to be supporting us. And we're thankful for people who are getting on board as fast as possible to make sure we see this over the finish line. But we're feeling really confident about it. I know that there's one thing that my team would be upset with me if I didn't share, and that was that the most important thing that people can do right now is volunteer to phone bank. So if you have even an hour to spend working the phones for us, people can sign up at sarah2020.com/volunteer. An hour of calling your friends and letting them know you're supporting me and why goes a very long way. And so anyone who can do that, we're very thankful for.
Awesome, very much so. Well, hey, look, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I know you're busy. I know Gregory, your campaign manager, is really busy, because boy, he called me, he jumped right on me and said, Bruce, you got to have Sarah on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He said, I will get her to get on, blah, 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 to talk about this issue and give you an update. Okay? So again,
okay.
I want to thank him and right in front with you. You've got quite a campaign manager in Gregory. Okay?
You know what? Where Greg tells me to go, I go. We should all do what Greg says. He's a pretty sharp guy. Thanks,
Yes,
everybody. Take good care. Be healthy. Talk soon.
Take care. Be safe. Okay. Well, there you go. We've had her on, and I think it was great that she was able to stop by and acknowledge, if you will, a few words about this beautiful woman, this great woman in the justice. I mean, she was a very awesome. I mean, wow, with series and she was a very popular person too, by the way, very, very popular woman in the justice aspect of it. She's going to be missed. She's really going to be missed. Boy, she left a trail of many other women. Back when at one point in time, there were four women. There were four women on the Supreme Court at one point in time, and that was a very interesting piece. It's going to be interesting to see. Now we got the politics of bringing someone else on. So what we're going to do now is that I'm going to bring on some of the guests. You've seen these guys before. I want to welcome Jack Kerfoot and also Bob Williams on the show today. And what we're going to do, we're going to spend some time on. Actually, spend a little time on the campaign per se. We've got Oregon. We've got Portland, Oregon that we've got to really spend some time with. The politics is pretty heavy right now. Some folks around the country have already gotten the ballots, and that's going to be very interesting on that end of it. And I realize there's going to be a lot of attention given into as far as the media is concerned, from the national issues as it relates to politics and the elections and whatever. But really, we've got a lot of work here in our state and here in the city of Portland, in Portland, Oregon. A lot of issues are being set up on there. You know for a fact we've made national news as a result of, in all due respect of our mayor. You know, really, the guy's got he has some issues, but we've made, and we've got to get our city back together. We got work to do. I mean, we've got people coming in from out of town and they're really having a major impact on who we are, and some changes should have been asked to be put on, if you will, on some of the issues. And I'm talking about the whole issue of the protesting aspect of it. That's huge. We've got the homeless issue. That's huge. We got COVID-19. That's huge. And we just got off, if you will, but we're still on national news to a certain degree. You never know when it may even come back. And I'm talking about with all of this smoke. We've had some of the problematic, if you will, air, if you will, and that's been very, very awful, very strenuous, very stressful, if you will, on all of us here in the Portland metropolitan area. We had the worst air throughout the world, if you will, right here in Portland, Oregon. And again, I would say that We want to recognize those firefighters and all the folks who are there fighting that fire. That's very, very important. And also for those who lost their loved ones in the fire. I mean, that was huge. That was huge. But now we had a good rain. We had good rain, and it cleaned out a lot of this stuff, and we can breathe a bit. And wow, it's like a breath of fresh air, if you will. People can get out a little bit right now. Again, still be cautious. Be cautious about quarantining yourself and making sure you take care of yourself, because we've got things to do. And for those who are having some tough time, who lost their homes and this, that, and the other, again, we're still saying that if you can help out these folks, you can either contribute to the Red Cross and other entities and to help these folks out. Many of them just lost everything. They didn't have insurance or nothing. They lost their whole homes here in the Portland metropolitan area and throughout the state of Oregon, for that matter. That basically was right in line with that whole peace aspect of it. So again, I could say more about that, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off and give these guys that are both in here, Jack and Bob, the opportunity to share their thoughts about whatever they want to share that part. Maybe start off with the acknowledgement of the justice that just passed away. Let's acknowledge her first, and then we'll get into having each one of these guys give an update in terms of what their experience has been since they were on the show, as far as what's going on here in the Portland metropolitan area in Oregon. Okay, with that, why don't we start off with Dak? Hold on, Dak.
Good evening, Bruce. The only thing I would slightly disagree with Sarah about is, although Justice Ginsburg may have been considered to have politics left of center, when in her terms on the Supreme Court, she was known as someone that would build consensus. She worked tirelessly to understand the issues, whether it was more of a conservative side or liberal side. He was more interested in the rule of law and the ideas in the rule of law, and to build consensus to try and get one position established. And so she could either write the majority opinion or the minority opinion by the Supreme Court. So she is well respected by Republicans and Democrats, justices, left or right, and her passing on the Supreme Court will surely be missed.
You know, I might add, on that same note, Scalia was one of her best buddies. You know that, Mark?
Yes, indeed.
Scalia. I mean, he was just the opposite. He was just the opposite in terms of his politics aspect of it. They were real good buddies, and you would see them every so often. They would have them together discussing things. Two brilliant people, two brilliant individuals. Scalia was just as brilliant, if you will, along that particular line. Okay, Bob, would you like to make a couple points in regards to justice?
Sure. I happened to be around in 1960 when they brought forth the equal rights for women, and she and the group she was with, they led that fight. And one of her questions was, wouldn't it be a great place, the United States, if America gave women the same rights as they give men? And they fought that battle and they won. That's what caught the eye of Bill Clinton, along with a few other things that she had brought forth. And as President Obama said about her, he has the utmost of respect and caring for her. She spoke the way she felt, and I remember when not Bill Clinton, but Donald Trump was elected, she said, and she said about him, he is a faker.
Keep it clean, Bob.
Okay, and then she retracted that because she didn't want to get into the political side of the courts, and that made me respect her even more, because she said what she felt, but she also tried to keep it in the perspective in which it was intended, which was out in the law.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, guys, why don't we comment now a little bit about what has been your experience with the fact that we were highlighted worldwide just recently, and I know that I spoke to both of you during that particular time. We were all quarantined, and we all had things to say. So, Bob, why don't we start off with you? What did you? I'm sure you looked at the tube and you saw the excitements and whatever. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, you know, my thoughts were, I'm living this, and what's going on is going on around me, and I'm here with the people. I'm hearing what people are saying, and it was kind of a disconnect to what was going on in the news, the sensationalizing of things that was happening. And I was online with friends from in Florida, Mississippi, Chicago, New York, and other surrounding areas who was asking me, what's going on? Why is Portland in such a turmoil? And I said, well, it's not the people that live here. It's the people that have come in here and think they're helping when they're hurting. And we have to get to the fact of what's the agenda. And so everybody needs to start asking people, what's the agenda? But when the fire started, we knew what the agenda was. It was to protect and save as many homes and lives as we possibly could, and to stop the fire and to survive the smoke and ash that was coming in all across the state.
Okay, sounds good. Jack, back to you.
Well, this has been an interesting time for Portland, and I think sometimes the news does sensationalize to sell copy, to keep eyes on the screen or eyes on the newsprint. But we have to realize that there were several things here. Obviously, the initial phase started with Black Lives Matter, but then we started to have more groups come in that said they supported Black Lives Matter, but they had their own agendas as well. And I think along the line, somewhere along the line, that we lost, the momentum shifted away from Black Lives Matter to people that are now focused on other issues, whether it's defund the police or anarchism, destruction of any government organization. And there are those that in this area that are anarchists or even outside. And then, of course, we have a national election coming along, which prompted both sides to look at this as an opportunity to put their stake in the ground and take their position relative to reduction of violence in support of the police, or changes for the police methodology and approaches that are there. So we have the very conflicted messages coming out of Portland, and I'm deeply concerned that the initial message of Black Lives Matter have been lost, or at least muted, by other people and other groups that are come into our city.
Okay, that's a good point. And in fact, this is a good time maybe to share that too, because we're getting right into the crux of the campaigns, and the national news has definitely has taken the front, if you will, of the so-called media piece aspect of it. And it's so easy to jump in that, excuse me, that dark hole, if you will. And we need to focus on our local stuff, our issues. And I would even say that and share that with all the other entities that are having the same situation throughout this country. Every state in the union has the same issues that we have in many ways, but in their own perspective. And so it's a very important thing and time now to spend the time and effort on our respective issues. And they will do the same thing for theirs. So important, because Black Lives Matter, as far as I'm concerned, when they came up with this issue, it is an issue. This has been an issue in this country for years. I mean, years. I still think of, and I still spend a lot of time thinking about that whole history with the Lincoln issue and the revolution and this, that, and the other. There's a lot of history, and a lot of times, a majority of the people, a lot of people, have not had the opportunity, if you will, to pick up all of that background. Because in all due respect, they weren't being taught in school. It wasn't in the classroom. And as a result of that, everybody's got their own deal, and people will use it in a negative way, one way or the other aspect of it. So that's a very, very important piece. And so, like you said, Black Lives Matter, as far as I'm concerned, has a definition. But the fact of the matter is, we got to understand we do have a major election right now, and so consequently, people will use it back and forth. But again, if we get off that lane aspect of it, all of a sudden our Portland issues all of a sudden will be null and void. So I'm just saying, let's keep it on Portland, Oregon, and stay out of the so-called national deal. That's not where we are. We're in Portland, Oregon, and we need to spend the time there. And that's a very important piece. I want to make sure that we get that point across, because people are even looking at even at this show. They're looking for things about what can we do to solve the problems that we have. We got protesting. We got issues about the mayor. We're here with Mayor Wheeler, and we've got issues with Mayor Wheeler, and we need to talk about that. As far as I'm concerned, he's got pluses and minuses also too. Maybe it's just that he's just spent the time, and that's it. He maybe needs to move on with his life. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't wish him any negatives or this, that, and the other. But the fact of the matter is, I'm thinking about what's happening here in the Portland metropolitan area. It's very, very, very important. So to the viewing audiences, I would say to you that also do the same thing. Consider that. Get together with your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors about these issues. If you're a family and you've got kids and whatever, understand what that's all about. You got education issues about their kids. You got the safety issues aspect of it. You got food issues. You got job issues. There's all kinds of things that we have to deal with here locally. So there's more than enough, if you will, to talk about our issues. The national issues is something, all due respect, that's a foreign entity right now, as far as I'm concerned. And so I just want to make sure we understand that, because it's going to be tight. We just had the other person who's running for mayor. That's a runoff with Sarah. And for a lot of folks who didn't understand that, that's a runoff. 19 people ran for mayor this time around. In fact, 19 people ran the last time around. And in fact, she ran for mayor the first time. I even ran for the first time, and I ran the second time. Even Jack Kerfoot, that's why I've got Jack here. Jack ran for city council. It's not an easy task just putting your name down and saying, I'm going to run for office, okay? So the bottom line is that that's where we are with this piece. So, mere fact that she called me up and a campaign manager called me up and wanted to acknowledge this woman who had just died at 87 years old with the justice. And many folks that are looking at this program right now probably didn't even know her name. They probably didn't know her name. They didn't even understand what the Supreme Court was all about. Well, guess what? You can Google Supreme Court now. We got the technology. Google it. Find out what's going on with it. Google her name. Find out why Sarah was making that point, or even like what Bob was making in regards to the knowing who she was. And the same thing with Jack. So again, I'm spending a little bit more time on that, because I am not going to accept any national input right now. We got more work to do, basically dealing with local. It's not trying to. It's just I've been in this business so long, and it's something how media can just take you and just mold you the way they want, and that's just the way it is. It just mold you, and you get caught up in that hole, and you can't get out. You got me? So with that, Rob, you had something to say? Go on.
Two things, and one is on the Supreme Court, and that is Mitch McConnell has come out. He didn't say anything about the death of the Supreme Court justice. He said Donald Trump nominee will be in the Supreme Court, will be taken up in the Supreme Court. That's number one. Number two is bringing it home. As you know, because of the fires and the smoke and the ash and everything, the demonstrations downtown kind of stopped. And it was just announced today that it would start up again tonight, Friday night, 7 o'clock. So it's online, everybody is there. But then a group that I've never heard of, the young, let me see if I can find it here, because I put it down. The Pacific Northwest Youth Liberation Front announced that they will start the demonstrations again tonight at 7 o'clock. Who are they, and what are they demonstrating for? That needs to be one of the questions that needs to be answered.
Let me ask you a question, Bob. Well, what should we do? You said they're going to start again tonight. What should we do to counter that? What would be your solution to that issue? What would you say?
I'm from that old school that says you can demonstrate, you can voice your opinion because the Constitution allows that. But when you begin to destroy people's property, deface people's property, and do violent things towards the police, we have rules of law to cover that. So what are they there to do? Are they there to destroy property, or are they there to demonstrate and then make sure their voice is heard? So it all
Okay.
depends on what they're there to do.
Okay. Well, let me toss something out, and maybe Jack could jump in up in there also too. Why even allow, if you will, the demonstrations to happen at night anyway? I mean, why can't the mayor, if you will, just basically just call it off? Say we will not have any curfew. Will be at daylights, if you will, at the end of the day, if you will. So there won't be any demonstration. Making the announcement, there won't be any demonstration in the evening anymore. The demonstration will now be discussed about during the daylight hours. Okay, Jack, why don't you come on in?
Well, fundamentally, the question is, how do we give people the right for freedom of speech and a freedom to express their opinions? When I lived in London many years ago, there was an area on Hyde Park called Speaker's Corner, and you could walk down there and put a soapbox or a box on the corner and express your political opinions. I think what we need to do is the standard law is that if you're going to have a demonstration or a march or a protest, you need to file your paperwork to just simply describe the scope of it, how many people are there, so the police can have the appropriate amount of protection and rope off certain areas to make sure that they can have a peaceful and organized demonstration and be in compliance with the law, to make sure that other people, innocent bystanders or people that are just on the downtown area, they're safe and no one is at risk, and we're not destroying the businesses as well. So we have rules and laws and order. Unfortunately, Mayor Wheeler has randomly applied these with occasional interference or interjection with the police on how to respond. So the question is, if we're changing this, why are we changing this, and what's the model, what's the rules, what's the regulation? And right now, we don't seem to have any real leadership to address how people can have a systematic, organized protest to express their right to their opinions. If it's an anarchist opinion, if it's an Antifa opinion, if it's a Proud Boy opinion, whatever that opinion is, how are they going to express their opinions in a peaceful way that does not destroy property or put people's lives at risk? My concern is, I do understand that people are angry. I understand they're angry for a wide number of reasons. But what we also have, quite candidly, is a devastated economy, not just in the United States and not just in Oregon, but in this city. And because of the action that's going on right now, we are doing nothing to hurt the economy and hurt other people as well.
Okay. Sounds great, Jack. Let's, at that particular point, I tell you what we'll do. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back for the second half of the show, and we'll continue the discussion. Be right back with you. Welcome back, folks. I guess we hit for the first half, and now we're going to go into the second half, and we're going to be spending some time here in the Portland metropolitan area, because as we said at the first part of the show, we talked about trying to focus here in the Portland metropolitan area, and it was said that now all of a sudden protesting wants to get back to the table. They want to do this thing now again at night, and it was referred by Bob, and from the standpoint that there was a new group that's coming into town and whatever. And in all due respect, and I'm going to throw this on the table for discussion aspect of it. We had policy here in Portland as it relates to marching and things of this nature. And the bottom line is that if one wanted to march whatever. And from that perspective, on weekends, things of that nature, you go into city council, city hall, and then fill out a form, and then at the same time, if a bond was required, you make sure that you check that deal, and you'd have to have a bond, i.e., insurance, just in case anything happened. So that meant that it wouldn't cost the citizens, if you will. So I'm gonna throw this out to you. And since I'd run for mayor, that was one of the things that I was touting to in terms of a solution to the problem. I'd suggested what I was suggesting was for discussion was that a person would go in, fill the form out, if you will, and then once the form was filled out, it would be given that to the mayor. It would be given to the city council. They would call you up, and then they would put that on the agenda so that people could have a discussion at city council. So they would, i.e., and then they would have a discussion on it, and then the person would be called in at the following commission meeting, and then that person would go before the podium and spend the time educating the public through the commissioners and in the live broadcast aspect of it as to what would be the benefit of having such, if you will, whether it be a march or anything of that nature, an expression, of freedom of speech and this, that, and the other. And then they would basically have the discussion. They would give the other folks the opportunity to come and respond to the discussion aspect of it. And then after they've done that piece aspect of it, they'd vote on it. They give it a yay or a nay. If they gave it a yay, then it would be laid out to the media and all when it was going to happen, when the march was going to happen, and what time, and this, that, and the other, and at the same time making sure that there was no conflict from the standpoint of getting into to other issues that were relevant to the entire community. For instance, because as you know, the downtown, especially downtown, is the living room, if you will, of our city. And people are looking forward to going downtown on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, if you will, walking along the corridors, if you will, looking at the water, and having a cup of coffee, things of that nature. So they would basically make sure that the path, if you will, would be discussed such that people would know that this particular event was happening during that particular time. That's what I was throwing on the table, and that's why I was having that discussion. And I'd like to get some of your response along that line. So I want to see if I can get Bob and Jack to jump in and see what they think about it. So in essence, we're going to make sure we share this, like we're doing now. We're sharing this with the public, and we're also sharing this with the sitting mayor and sitting commissioners. And hopefully they may want to consider having those kind of discussions. Right now, we do not want to get back into the same situation that we've been in for the last 100 days. Got me? And like I said, we don't want to have, right up front, and that was the other thing I was making a point of, is that we do not want to have, when I was suggesting, we shouldn't have any marches in the evening. It will only be during the daylight hours. Therefore, the kids can get involved, and seniors and the whole line, all that kind of good stuff. So with that, that's what I'm throwing on the table. Let's see if we can have a little discussion with that and see what we can come out with. Because the whole idea, remember now, we're educating the public as well as the commissioners who represent us. Okay? Who wants to start? Jack?
Well, Bruce, the first thing we have to realize is that I'm not sure constitutionally the city council can restrict or vote down anyone having a demonstration. They're really the only question, because again, that's an indicator that the city commission, or the mayor and the city council could restrict who could or could not express their opinion. What you could do is clearly, as it is the policy right now, or the law right now, simply fill out a form which talked about what you wanted to hold the march for, or the demonstration, and where you wanted to go at that period of time. Now, by doing it that way, it allows you several things. One, it allows to make sure that the police have got appropriate people if they're going to march in the street, that they've got it blocked off and for the safety of the people, the marchers, or the people that are expressing their opinion or their political position, or if there are other issues involved relative to that. Also, it allows the newspapers and the media to be notified that if people need to recognize that there's going to be a march down to a certain period of time at a certain place and time, that they may want to avoid that because it will be congested or certain parts of the streets will be closed off. I do not like the idea of restricting access to a demonstration, but I do like an orderly demonstration. That goes back to the days many years ago and the civil rights marches in the South and in voter registration marches in the South that happened for well over a decade. And that was always very, very well organized. Now, the guiding principle was the Reverend King, who always wanted an orderly demonstration to make sure that the message he was pushing and message he was carrying was not deflected or distracted at all by any violence or anything that was away from what he wanted to get across in their march. So from my standpoint, the idea of organization, yes. The idea of the city council saying we will allow this or we will not allow this, that I don't think that there's a constitutional grounds for that.
But Jack, don't they represent the people?
Sorry.
The city council, you know, they're elected by the people, right? It is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, right? I mean, and we've just gone through 100 days of destruction. And who picked up the tab? The public, right?
That is correct.
And at night, you know, we we had a recent death and this, that, and the other. And my point is that I think there's enough there on the table to say, what do we need to have the march at night? I'm not saying to restrict anything. I'm just saying, let's make sure that we do it during daylight hours because we can have a little bit more of a security and would be far safer, if you will. And we want anybody and everybody to participate. Seniors, kids, the whole 9 yards. And it's,
right.
And that's not happening at night.
But see, what I'm taking issue with is the idea that the city council would have the right to say, yes, you can have a march, or no, you cannot have a march. But as far as having during a certain period of time, I think that needs to be determined based on the police and based on the city council, the timing and the date and the location of this march. Because if you're having a march downtown and it disrupts the downtown area, during business hours, then that may not be an optimum time. So you may want after business hours, let's say from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So we need to recognize that depending on where you want to have a march or a demonstration, just like when they have the Portland Marathon, they have to go to the police and file for a permit for an organized event, and they have to give them an idea where the race is going to be, and they have to approve or disapprove or modify the layout of the course. They also have to notify how many people are going to be there so the police will know how to maintain order, and also for the safety of the runners and also people that may be in that area. So from that standpoint, I see no difference relative to having the oversight to the timing or the location. From that standpoint, absolutely, I agree with you.
Okay, all right. Like I said, I was just focusing on the night piece. Where we've been. We've got that down. We've been having problems with the night piece, and it's just totally against the grain. And another little point I would make, I know you mentioned about notifying the police. Well, that's part of the process. The police are basically employees of the city. In all due respect, is that as you say, just like you said, once they fill out that application form, you go through that whole process, and I would say 95% of the stuff that you were talking to, that would be, that would be all part of the process. But the key, I was just focusing on the night deal. That's all I'm talking about.
Right.
The night deal. And the fact of the matter is those people are elected, but they really represent us. That's what the bottom line. Okay. All right, Bob, what do you got? Any comments? What do you think about?
Well, I've been around a little while, and I marched in Chicago with Dr. King. One of the things that was done with us, I was a youngster, and we were kind of hot-headed, and the old heads in that march said to us, in no uncertain terms, we're here to get a point across. We're not here to start violence in any manner. the most violence you'll see is if you start violence, it's us. We understood what that meant. You know, they let us know that what the march was about while we were there and what they expected from us. These people are just coming in with their own idea. So why can't the city set a curfew, and say marches and et cetera will can commence between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Bingo. Now you have a set time where people can come between and do their marching and their demonstrations. The moment the violence starts, the police is supposed to be able to stop it. But when you tell a policeman, if you arrest someone and it's not for a certain thing, we're not going to prosecute them. I'm going to stay within that boundary. If I'm one of the riders, I'm going to stay there and be able to fight based on what you told me I can do. And defacing people's property and things of that nature should not be a part of demonstrating. I don't care who you are. Black, white, green, yellow, or blue, you're wrong. You're hurting me and my business versus getting a point across. For what reason? That's just my view.
Okay.
That's when the police should step in, not when people are assembling, not when they are chanting, not all of those other things, but when they begin to deface and burn people's property is when the police should step in.
Okay. Now, one of the couple of things. I was thinking about the frequency that we just had the march, and they were all focusing at night, right? You got me? At night. And all I was saying that, how do you feel about, let's say we cut it off at sundown? At sundown, nothing exists after sundown.
Well, I don't think that's lawful. It sounds good, but it's not lawful. You can't say you have rights up until this time of night, but it is lawful to arrest them for the violence that takes place after that. Now you can have a disturbance audience because they're disturbing people's rest, they're disturbing the community, they're disturbing in the community, file a complaint with the city, and the city takes that up. I mean, there's all kind of things you can do to bring this thing to a fruition or to maintain some type of control where the violence doesn't get out of hand.
Okay, and again, we were having this discussion aspect of it. We've had 100 days of violence. We've had 100 days of destruction. We've had 100 days of stress. And all I'm saying is that, and if it all occurred after dark, I'm saying, why then should we have it after dark? I mean, I think that would be a good way to at least have the discussion. And I think even if we had to bring it up to a vote, once we go through dot the I's and cross the T's, then let the people speak. Let them say, but make sure that hopefully, and that was the other point I was going to throw out to you, is that whoever basically, there has to be a responsible entity for the march. So the person would have to put their name down there, and again, like I said, it would be bonded, i.e., because one of the things that we learned over the last 100 days was that there was a lot of destruction, and the voting public had to pick up the tab. See, but in the bond process, and we all know what the bond is all about. If with the bond process, if anything happens, guess what? A bonding agency comes in, and they'll just set it up accordingly, and then boom, the person pays the fee, and then guess what? It gets taken care of. So now it's not about the public, i.e., picking up the tab, because a lot of folks are on limited income, all this, that, and the other. So I'm throwing that out to say, if I'm still coming back to all I'm talking about is that it all happened after dark. That's all I'm saying. So if they just do it at sundown, and then anything during the day, no problem. But they still have to go through that process. I mean, everybody would still have to go through the process. Still would be freedom of speech, but we're using the destructions for the last 100 days and using that as a saying, hey, we gotta come up with some kind of a policy that deal with some of these issues. Are you getting where I'm going with that piece?
Sure.
And I appreciate what you're saying. It is freedom of speech. You're right. You got me. But people are not feeling good and comfortable. It's just causing us so much destruction, and would also set the example for other municipalities, as far as I'm concerned, other municipalities, because I don't know, some of these cities don't even have, if you will, a bonding process or filling out the application form. You know, that's why people just.
Yeah, Bruce, I can give you a perfect example. In California, a rapper said, I will be at McDonald's around this time. And somehow or another, it got out to the general public, and it was a large, it was a large group there. And when he showed up, it didn't get out of hand, but people, did their thing. And you know what the city did? They fined it. They fined him and McDonald's because the crowd was so large. So yes, cities can do that. I remember when Justin Bieber said he was going to a mall and things happened. They were trying to sue him. So all of these things can be done, but can they be successful? And number two, why are we against the police arresting people that's burning and destroying property? I'm at a loss. That's your city council. That's not listening to the people. And that's where I disagree. If I don't care who the group is, if they come and they want to hold a rally, hold your rally. But if they come and they want to destroy property, they've overstepped their boundaries and they need to be arrested. It's just that simple. I haven't been downtown Portland for 3 months. And now that I know that I was getting ready to go this weekend, but now that I know that they're beginning to start this stuff again, I'm not going again. That hurts the businesses that are still open downtown. That's why businesses closing. You're killing your financial center. You got to do something to control the violence. Plain and simple.
Good point. And at the same time, you're paying for it after it happens.
That's right. It's coming out. My tax dollars could go to something else.
That's right. And it causes stress with a whole bunch of other folks.
That's right.
And that's a very important piece. So I think this is the kind of discussion, hopefully, city council, our present city council, will have those kinds of discussions, because I've not heard it. All during that 100, every day it was happening. And then I was thinking that maybe someone might bring the issue up. In fact, that was one of the things I was sharing when I was running for office, aspect of it, even on the show and this, that, and the other. But it's like anything else. Politics took his deal. You know what I mean? It was, Bruce, blah, 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 or if not that, Steve Dunn. Steve. Steve does his thing, and then but he's got his platform to deal with too. Got me? And so consequently, some people get invited, some people don't get invited. Which reminds me that sure, there were 19 people that ran, but a lot of times what they will do is that they will pick maybe the top 3 or the top 4 or whoever has the money. You got me? Or who has the political access arena, that they will say, okay, fine, we'll only invite these people, the first 2, or the first 3, or the first 4, or just the first 1. My point is this: if you file to run for office, everybody should be invited. Everybody should be given the opportunity to express their platform, because you never know, there might be the needle in the haystack sitting right there within that 19, and you're not going to find it, if you will, just with the top 4. They may have the money, but they don't have the solution. You see where I'm kind of coming from? So that's another. I was going to throw that out on the table, and because we had a number of people that ran. Even Jack ran in the same deal for the fish seat. Fish had was about 18 or 19, Jack, that
18.
ran. 18. Yes. See, that's a lot of folks. But at the same time, if they fill that application process, they should have had the same equal rights, if you will, to express themselves across the board. Sure, the voters pamphlet and things of that nature. In all due respect, getting that visual and getting that person without any notes come up and express themselves about why are you running when you, to answer that question. That's quite a bit. This is not something where where they got, if they got the money, you can hire professional writers to put all this stuff together and put your campaign together. But to get that person to speak, and that's why I like Steve Dunn and what they do at Channel 2. But every station should be doing it and give everybody equal time. And they do it, as you know, in the commission meeting and the county meetings. They give you that 3 minutes, remember? And then they give you that 3 minutes to speak if you want to go up there, for that public time. And that's good. That means you have to condense your time in the 3 minutes. And they cut you off for 3 minutes. And otherwise, you have to come back another day. But my point is, they need to see the visual. If a person says that, then I think that would help out quite a bit, if you will. Any thoughts about that? As far as people running for office?
Well, the thing I would say is I'd like to recognize the people that I think did it well. And the groups that I thought did it well were the League of Women Voters and the Oregonian. They simply sent you a questionnaire. And if you filled out the questionnaire to the different questions, they would post, in the case of the Oregonian, they would post your answers based on the commissioner and everyone that filled out the form in the Oregonian when it would come out. For the League of Women Voters, they actually taped you. They asked the questions and they taped your responses to these questions, asked you to add a little more color or a little more information to those questions as well. Unfortunately, outside of those organizations, we had very much shall we say, a targeted audience or groups that wanted to choose the candidates that they felt were most inclined with their positions. So that to me is disappointing. But the League of Women Voters and also the Oregonian, I think, did it very well.
Okay. And I'll make a point. And the only reason why I'm making a point about that piece, I've ran a number of times, if you will. You got me? And I've learned a lot. And I found that even from the Oregonian Center, the two that you mentioned, the Oregonian and also the League of Women Voters, I've responded in the early time when I first had access. But then I learned from the standpoint, many of those individuals don't have any background. See, you got me? And because they don't have that background, that's why I was suggesting that person be given the visual opportunity in person, if you will, to make a statement. And then maybe have a committee, if you will, that will sit there, because now they have been told these are the issues. Like saying something, we're telling you before they run, letting people know, hey, we're gonna have a city council races or whatever, and these are the major issues facing the city of Portland. Let's say 3 major issues, and publicize that through media and this, that, and the other. And so when a person comes in and files to run for peace, it will respond to that. Maybe to one of the items, maybe 2, maybe 3. But the fact of the matter is, there it is, and it changes constantly. Got me? And so I found that when I interviewed with the Oregonian and this, that, and the other, it basically asked me questions trying to stunt the stars that routine. I'm sitting there saying, "Wait a minute, what are we talking about? Are you running for what? For what?" And so it just didn't make any sense. And then I even tried to deal. I said, "Okay, fine. Well, now I won't even go. I will not be a part of that deal." You know what I'm saying? And then I found out that if you're a strong person and they've already picked someone that they've identified, got me? Then guess what happens? Then you don't get invited. You got me? You just don't get invited at all. And so just to be fair, if the application process is there and a person's file, they should be given the same equal time, whether you got $1 million in the bank or you got $1. Now, if you want to cut that off and say, well, if you don't have $1 million, you can't even run for office. Well, guess what? I guess if that's what the people say, that's what they want. You got me? But that's the past. That's what has been happening. We're coming into a new deal now. People are educated, a little bit more aware. We got technology. They can Google this, that, and the other. They don't necessarily read the newspaper, but they got the newspaper, and it's right here. Yeah, there's the newspaper. right? Okay. All right, Bob, you got some points.
Yeah, right quick. I've seen your way, and I've seen Jack's way, and I've seen other ways. I've been a part of it. I sat in a room with 45, I think it was 45 people,
Yeah,
and who was trying to make a decision on who they were going to support for governor of the state of Oregon.
good point.
They had all the data as to who would beat who on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, and everything else. They went out and got someone else to run for them, leave a position for life, and run so that they could support them. So all of those things are coming in the room. I had people come into the room, and I had people say to them, well, we're not making a decision today. We just want to get your views and everything else. And the other candidate come in the room, and they go back to the body and tell them, we recommend that you support so-and-so. So, you can't make people change who they are. So the thing you have to do is just hope that that everything that is being done is above board. And by doing that, attending that meeting, if they say we're meeting on Wednesday and you're not invited and you're running, show up. What are they gonna do? Kick you out? That's newsworthy, So now they're not trying to get. That's the thing. People wait to be. If I ever ran for an office and they didn't invite me and I knew the time and place of the meeting, I'm going. And that's the thing that people that are running don't take that self-initiative to do. And that's one of the things they have as I call it, a handwritten excuse as to why things are not right. Go to the meeting, whether you're running and they got candidates there. Go to the meeting. Or take a brochure with you. Take something that you've written out. If they don't let you on the stage, pass it out to the audience. I'm running.
Okay.
You have to take some initiative when you run for office. You did. Jack did. So should others. That's just my opinion.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I guess the thing is, I had to learn up to that particular point. So with that, this is a good point to take a break at this point in time, and hopefully the viewing audience will take some of the points that we talked about, get together with your neighbor, because you're having problems now with the folks you've already elected to city council and the mayor. So that's why we've had this discussion. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to say goodbye for a moment, but we'll be back here next week, and we'll have some other things on our mind. Remember, take care of your issues at home and your neighbor's issues. Talk about what we talked about, and have a good one. Take care. Stay safe.
Wear your mask.